Hey, it's Nikki. Before we start the show, I wanted to invite you to download a free resource that I put together for you as the listener. This is my gift to you. You can get it right now. It is the 17 buying signals. Now, I wrote a whole book about buying signals, and I wanted to put it into a really simple format that you can have at your fingertips or in front of you whenever you want to. So I took out the 17 buying signals from the book, put them on a simple PDF, also gave you the kind of what to do when you get a buying signal, and explain what a buying signal is. So that PDF is available for you as a listener to go and download right now by going to yoursalesmaven.com/17. That's yoursalesmaven.com/17 so that you can start acting on these buying signals and closing more business. All right, when you're ready, let's start the show.
Are you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Rausch will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch, and today's episode is all about mastering excellence. If you've been following the podcast, you know that I'm doing a series on mastering excellence where I bring in experts, people who are getting exceptional results in some area of their life or business, and ask them very specific questions so that we can start to understand the structure behind how they are getting these exceptional results. And when you understand structure, you can oftentimes implement that into your own life and business so that you can achieve excellence in that area as well. So this comes from my background in neuro-linguistic programming, where we believe that there is a structure to excellence. And so here we go. Today's guest, I'm very excited to welcome to the show, is Tiffany Neuman. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Tiffany, and then, well, you're going to get to meet her and you're going to be excited because she's awesome. But Tiffany Neuman is a visionary branding strategist who helps highly motivated entrepreneurs and influencers up-level their businesses. After 15 years in the corporate world, working for brands like FedEx, Stoli Vodka, and Burt's Bees, she left to establish a revolutionary branding business that stays one step ahead of trends. Tiffany now works with clients across the globe to help them 10x their sales and shine even brighter in their niches. Tiffany, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Nikki. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy you said yes. So I want to give a shout out before we get into the actual questions to our mutual client, Emily May. Emily connected. I love her. Hi, Emily. And I know she listens to the podcast. She connected us a few months ago now. She sent this message and it was like, hey, I feel like you two should know each other. Right. And then,
yeah, exactly.
And so anytime somebody does that, they're like, Nikki, I feel like you should know so-and-so. I'm always so interested in what prompts that. And so you and I set up a time to meet. Mm-hmm. We had, I thought, a really great conversation, and I totally could see why she thought we should connect.
Absolutely.
And then at the same time, I was talking to Elizabeth Hartkey about joining her Luminary Leadership Mastermind. And she was talking about these really amazing people who are going to be in the mastermind. And she said, there's a woman who is a branding expert. She's worked for these big companies. And I think she mentioned Burt's Bees.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that has to be Tiffany. She has to be talking about Tiffany. And I just felt like it was meant to, and I'll tell you, that really was the push me over the edge to be like, well, if Tiffany is there, I want to spend more time with her. I'm in. And I signed up hours after I found out that you were because I went and was doing some research, because she wasn't dropping names. She was just saying background of
who
people.
It was. Yeah. And I did her brand. So I knew I was in because I I knew what was going to be up, but it's just so funny. It was like the universe was conspiring to push us together.
I feel like it totally was. And so in a little bit, I feel like I was fangirling all over, like, okay, I get to go hang out with Tiffany. And I feel like I fangirled all over you the first day of our retreat that we just went to. So people who've listened to the podcast probably know that I'm really strategic when I go to conferences, and I come up with 5 people that I really want to make connection with. You were one of those people. And so like when we went out on the sailboat, like I was waiting for my opportunity. And then I came and like sat with you for, I don't even know how long we sat there and talked, but it was
a long time, but the feeling is mutual because I was super excited to hang out with you too. So
thank you. And then I feel like and then we were like magnets the rest of the conference, like unintentionally, we ended up at the same table the next day
for dinner, like twice.
Yeah, sat next to each other at dinner twice, like not even intentionally doing it, but yeah. So I feel like we were magnets. And so anyway, I'm so excited to have you on the show and specifically to be talking about what we're going to talk about today, because obviously you guys know already that Tiffany is a branding expert, but I am always digging. I want to know, like, what are those things that are, it's like your superpower. It's the thing that is it resides in your unconscious competence. It comes so easy to you. And I'm sure it's been honed and developed over the years, but it's one of those things that, people often look at you and go like, dang, how do you do this? And I have been on the receiving end of what Elizabeth's new brand has done, this Luminary Leadership Academy company that she's building. And it is unbelievably cool and exciting. And as a client, it feels, oh my God, like you have so elevated her brand. So what we're going to talk about specifically today is how do you find that brand clarity? Because she had a very different brand before.
Totally different. Yeah.
And you, like what you've done, and it feels so Elizabeth, like her brand, there's so much clarity in her brand now. And it's just really amazing. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is finding brand clarity. And I'm going to ask her these NLP questions, which she doesn't know ahead of time. But before we do that, is there anything you want to share with the audience? Things that I didn't say in your bio, things about who you are?
Not necessarily. Thank you for the opportunity though. I guess I would just say, is really my mission, is to help people find clarity. And then my methodology is legacy brand. And so that's the other piece that, I'm here to do. I have 2 daughters. And so like, I think about like, what am I leaving behind for them? And what am I leaving behind for the future? And so that's a big piece of the branding process as well for me specifically, is to help people really kind of look at that vision, look at their legacy, and then reverse engineer it and build a brand that they can really grow and evolve into. Mm-hmm. So that's the other little piece, I guess, I would share.
I love it. And I don't think I actually said your business name. Did I? I don't think I said it in the... Tell everybody what it is, like just to be
the business name itself is Tiffany Neuman Creative, but it's your legacy brand is the entity.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, let's dive in then if you are ready.
I am ready.
Okay.
I have no idea what to expect, but I am ready.
I love when people are willing to take a chance with me. All right. So here's the first question. If I was going to stand in for you for a day, like I get to like put on your persona, what would I have to do? What would I have to think? Or how would I have to behave in order to help somebody find brand clarity? Like from your perspective, I'm you.
I would say the number one thing is listen. I do a lot of listening. My husband makes fun of me because I am on Zoom all the time. And I listen to people. And so I think somehow by listening and asking questions as well, like really digging deep into people, I help pull the brand from them, if that makes sense. So the first thing that comes to me when you ask that question is definitely listening. And then the second piece is continuing to dig deeper, not just going surface level with people, but asking very pointed questions that just continue to go deeper and really get them to pause and think, we're so busy in our lives. And so a lot of what I do also is help entrepreneurs slow down so they can really connect to who they are and where they want to go and how they want their brand to be.
Mm-hmm. Would you be willing to share with me an idea or a question that you might ask, a pointed question, I think you said, that helps somebody dig deeper when they're trying to find clarity?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's so many aspects because we go through like vision, values, voice, all the things. But so for instance, I start with everybody with what's your vision? So I'd ask like in 3 to 5 years, where do you see your business and yourself being? And I don't think that's a unique question by any means, but so many people don't necessarily take the time. We make quarterly goals, we make yearly goals. So that's the first question. And then if they're not sure, then a level deeper would be, what do you envision yourself being in the 4 quadrants? So love and relationships, vocation, so the business, time and money, freedom, and just like self, right? Like where do you physically, health wise want to be? And so that takes a little bit deeper. And what people don't realize is they're always thinking about their business when they're creating their brand, but it's really a holistic view at your lifestyle, right? Like if you want to be a billionaire, that's great, but you probably may not have the strongest relationships because you're working a lot. And so I really have people look at all of the quadrants of their life. And then from there, I go deeper, in like, especially the vocation area, like what specifically do you want to be known for? What specifically do you want to leave behind? How do you want to show up? What feels good when you're serving? Who are the ideal clients that you want to serve? Like who are your favorite people? Not just like, who do you want to serve, but like, if you look back retrospectively, who were the top 3 people that you worked with? And we just go deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole.
I love that. It's one of those things that, if as a listener, if you haven't really taken time, because I think about this in my own business and I just did some rebranding that, a lot of those, I guess I answered maybe some of the questions when we were going through this process, but they're not things that I slow down and think about very often. But the way that you just even brought it up, like even thinking about this 4 quadrants and specifically my relationships and self, what does that look like? And then you build your legacy brand from that. That seems really powerful stuff.
Yeah. And it's a great example because you mentioned Liz, she's a great example because I think a lot of times we're focused on what people want from us or we think they want and them and not necessarily ourselves. And it's really the sweet spot in the middle, like who are you? And then what do people want? And I think she had the realization during the process, that her family was number one. And then she loved working with leaders and it's all about leadership. And before it was all about scaling, and scaling is still a piece of the business, but oftentimes what I found is like people have like these blinders on. So I love to help them release those blinders and realize that their vision is probably way bigger than they ever imagined. And step into that and realize what it is, which is really, really amazing to watch.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think you might have said this to me before we started recording. Like one of the things that you did initially was that you applied the same process to your own brand. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing. Yes.
Okay. And so so when you think about applying this, finding brand clarity, and you think about applying it to your own brand, what specifically would I have to do to behave like you, I'm Tiffany, to then find my own brand clarity?
That's a good question, because I have to say that finding my own brand clarity was probably the hardest thing that I've done. Like what I always say is you can't see the label inside the bottle. So it's hard to have an objective view. So I can do this for others. When it came to myself, I was like, I have no idea. So what I really did was what I had to do was treat myself as a client. I literally told my project manager, and actually, so I did my brand originally 3 years ago, and the core of it's the same, but I literally threw my website up in a weekend and, was focused on clients. So we're actually going through redoing the website right now, but the core messaging, the core of the brand, that's still the same. And how I got there was, like I was saying, just really, I took a 2-day retreat with myself and really thought about those questions, really decided like, what is it that I want to leave behind? How do I want to help people? And then also, it's really important to differentiate yourself, right? So I really thought about like what made me specifically unique and how I could create, if you're familiar with like a blue ocean strategy, what really would disrupt my niche and come at it from a different way. And with all of those things, like I love building communities. So I have a group program for branding, which is like unheard of. People are like, why would you do branding in a group? And so and I questioned myself, but I was like, that's actually what I need to go all in on because it's different and it sets me apart. And the same with the legacy piece. So I really paid attention to the things that I questioned, like, does that make sense? Or like nobody else is doing that. And I was like, okay, those are the things that I really need to double down on.
Ooh.
Like doubling down and going all in on the things that I was most like scared of or questioned actually is typically the best way to go. And they always say, I don't know the exact phrase, but like the things that scare you more, or like, you're evolving if you're uncomfortable, like always being uncomfortable is not a bad thing. If you can lean into that, like that's the edges that'll make you grow.
Yeah. So I think that what you just gave, like that was a huge gold nugget right there because I think a lot of times, especially when we're starting out, we're a little bit afraid to do things that's different than how everybody else is doing it. Now, Tiffany shared with you guys that she had to get some time away. She took 2 days. So there's that quiet time where you're really focused on like, what is most important to me? And those things that scare you. And you think, I really like doing this, or this piece would be interesting to me, but nobody else is doing that way. How can you lean into that? Mm-hmm. So I would challenge all of you listening to think about something right now that you would like to do, or it's kind of like keeps kind of popping up as an idea for you, but you haven't tried it because, that's not how everybody else is doing it. Like, what would happen if you leaned in? You might then create some really amazing brand clarity for yourself and how to set yourself apart.
Absolutely.
That's so amazing. Okay. So here's my next question. What are your goals when you are helping somebody finding branding clarity? Like what's the goal?
Such a good question. Really, my main goal is to guide them to the point where they have the clarity. That's kind of redundant, but the goal would be to bring them not only clarity, but also confidence. So like I just ended a cohort yesterday, and literally one woman was in tears and she was like, yes, I have the clarity. And that's what I was hoping for. But she was like, what I didn't expect was this confidence. She's like, I've been hiding. I haven't been really going out full force because I wasn't super confident in having the clarity and sharing that. And so things just really shift with people when they have the messaging, they have the words to like show up and tell stories and have a unique framework. So that's the other like literal pieces is to have the messaging, to have their own unique framework that they can speak about and that positions them as a thought leader. So, when you have that, like I'm known for the legacy brand, like when people have that one thing, not just like, oh, I do branding, that really helps set you apart too. So creating that unique offer structures, like naming conventions. So everything really, I'm kind of rambling here to get to the end goal, I think, to answer your question.
I'm super interested.
So thank you for letting me do that.
Rambling.
So everything comes together, really, that would be the main goal for everything to come together, be cohesive. So they have like a branded package. It's not just a logo. It's not just colors. Like that's the icing on the cake. Mm-hmm. What I really want them to walk away with is everything that's like, if you think about an iceberg, everything that's underneath the surface, that's the foundation. Mm-hmm. And then the pretty stuff is like above the surface. That's what people see. That's great. But too many people, they start above the surface and there's no foundation underneath. And that's why they're not confident or knowing what they're actually coming out to say. Mm-hmm. And so I would say if I had to sum it up in one, I'd really want, the goal would be for them to walk around with a whole brand foundation.
Love that. Okay. So then how do you know you're achieving your goal of like somebody walks away with a brand foundation?
So I really know that when I realize that they've gotten the clarity, they have the confidence, and then we create a brand manual at the end. So that is really the vision, the voice, the values, the brand story, the naming conventions, the offers, their unique framework. So when all of that is complete and I deliver that literal document to them, I know I've met that goal. Like their foundation is set. They can walk away and use that in their businesses. They can hand it to, a Facebook ads manager. They could hand it to a copywriter. They could hand it to their team and just know that it's set and they forget it and they don't have to like keep trying to figure it out any longer.
Awesome. And you might feel like you've answered this, but I'm going to ask it just in case. What do you actually do to reach that goal? What do you actually do to get to the brand manual, all the things that you just listed?
That's a great question. So how do I say this? I would say I really serve as a guide and a mirror. So again, I listen, and then I also have a lot of exercises that I'm guiding them through. So they're doing introspection throughout the process. So it's really a co-creation process where they're going deep within and finding that out. So I'm helping pull that out. And then the second piece is the strategic piece that from all my experience is taking all of this like stuff that we pulled out and then putting it back together in a cohesive manner.
Love that.
So it's almost like it's like breaking everything apart. It becomes messy middle. Like I always tell people during the process, because they almost get more confused a little bit during the process. Uh-huh. And I'm like, trust the process. We're in the messy middle. And then it like comes back together, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that I think is another really important tip. So I think you've given a lot, but this is one I really want to comment on is in order to really find clarity and specifically branding clarity, but maybe just clarity on anything that's super important to you, you have to be willing to work through the messy middle.
Yes.
And that it's probably anytime you're going to get to a place where you have a really high level of clarity that is built on confidence because, you're so confident in the message, the story, all the work that you did. Like there's a piece of it that is an absolute mess. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, it's brilliant actually. Cause I say that to them, but I've never really thought that was like legitimately part of the process, but I'm sure we've all heard that before. Like sometimes things get worse before they get better. And I think now that we're talking about it, that's why so many people will be like, I've been working on this for 2 years. Like I finally get it, and it's because they probably have given up during that messy middle. Like they get into it and they're like, I'm just even more confused than I was before. So like continuing to push through that and know and just trust that the outcome is there at the other side. And I think that's like growth in general a lot, right? So yeah, you nailed it.
I find too, like I'm not that I want to get us off topic, but I know that I had a conversation recently with somebody who was like, I was doing pretty good with my sales process. And then I learned all the stuff that you teach, Nikki, and now I'm feeling really confused and I feel like I'm bumbling through. And in those moments, I didn't have this language, but I wish I did, to be like, you're in the messy middle, because as you start to, bring this into and make it more about how you show up, it gets so much easier and your confidence level will be very different at the end. So
there's something about that too, that you just made me think of, is like, I've talked a lot about integration, and a lot of times, even after they have the clarity and the confidence, it's so new. Like anytime we learn new skills and things. And so there's like this level or this like time of integration period where you have to like really step into it and get used to it too. So like they have those sales tips, but they haven't actually integrated that in. And once they do, then it'll just be like, okay, I got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do this thing because, my NLP teacher used to always say, the only person that likes change is a wet baby. Because change is super uncomfortable. And so when I am in a period of really uncomfortable, like whatever it is, business, life, whatever, I'll do this thing where I go, change is happening. And I'll say it out loud. And I say it as if it's like a super exciting, positive thing, even though part of me wants to be like, oh, change is happening, but it's like, change is happening.
I love that.
I like do this in the car when I'm driving by myself, so change is happening. Messy middle. I am so in love with what you just shared. I feel like we could probably end this here, but I'm going to ask you a couple more questions because I feel like, so if you're a listener right now and you feel like I don't really have brand clarity, maybe you are in your messy middle. The other thing about finding brand clarity, I will say, is that it's almost priceless. What I'm going to say, like, it's almost priceless to be able to work with somebody who can help you work through your own blind spots. Like what's your saying? You say you can't see the label. You
can't see the label from inside the bottle. Yeah.
Oh, so good. So good.
It's so hard. We've lived with ourselves our whole lives. Yeah. So to have that objective view. And I would say, back, one of those things, unconsciously competent, which I love when you say that. And I don't know if this is a learned skill or just something I inherently have, but for some reason, I'm just able to like see people objectively and, like finagle it all together. And so I feel like that's a big piece of it when, I couldn't even barely do my own brand. So, and I'm an expert. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I would think that most of us, whatever it is that you do and you deliver, there's probably a piece of it that you cannot do for yourself, right? Like whatever you do for somebody else and the impact that you make on your clients. There are certain areas of my business, like I'm a sales coach and I, focus on that. But there are times where I have actually had a coach say to me one time, she's this amazing coach. And she actually was like giving me sales advice. And then she goes, Nikki, I feel weird giving this to you. You're a sales, this is what you do. You teach this. It's your, and I'm like, I know. As a matter of fact, I just told a client like an hour before we got on this call, this exact thing that you just said to me. But it was like, I need sometimes somebody to point out my own blind spots. So I love that.
So true.
All right. So here is my last question around these, about finding brand clarity. How do you know when to stop?
That's a good question. I think it goes back to the brand foundation. So once we get all of the messaging, the clarity, I can, people have the confidence that I know we're good to go. And typically that happens really easily and effortlessly with most people. And then sometimes there's times it's a good example is a woman I'm working with right now. She's an executive producer and she's shifting to create this product that's like already in Walmart, but like she wanted to elevate it, long story. And we went through the process and realized that, like I was saying with Liz, her vision is so much bigger than this box that she came for me for. She was like, I'm actually here to impact moms on a whole nother level. And what she realized is her executive producing actually informs how she works as a mother. Right. And so she's like, people always ask me like how I get so much stuff done. And like, I'm like a super mom, like I'm doing the bake sales, I'm doing all the things. And I was like, yeah, I want to know because please. And she's like, I just realized like I adapted my executive producing role to motherhood. And like, it's like through the process, she realized this. And so we started this whole different brand that's called Executive Producing Mom. And so like with her, the process wasn't done because like we came to talk about a box that was like full of stuff for the like when somebody is sick in the hospital. So long story short, sometimes the process takes a lot longer because it unfolds a whole different set of things that people didn't even know was actually there. Mm-hmm. And so in that case, it can turn into a longer process because it hasn't been something that somebody's thinking about for a long time. So for instance, you're a sales expert, you kind of have your thing. And so that process is like fairly systematic as far as getting to those results. And then sometimes you have to go a lot deeper and a lot longer if something new unfolds, but the same thing, it ends once we get there and that clarity and the foundation is set.
Love that. I also really love that what you just gave that example about, is it the Executive Producing Mom? Is that her new brand?
Yes. It's not even like we're still in the mode of copywriting and all the things, but yeah. But
just even that of like, that is a legacy brand. Like that so speaks to you and what your work, like the work that you do, because that's a legacy brand. Like that's amazing. I'm in awe. I'm in awe of you. Okay.
It's fun.
So fun. So fun to have this time with you. Thank you so much for sharing some ideas around finding brand. I don't know why I can't say those words together. Finding brand clarity. Really good tips and ideas around like taking some time, getting quiet, going deep, really challenging yourself, being willing to do the thing that, nobody else is doing to really set your brand apart. I thought that was super powerful. Understanding the messy middle, also super powerful. So really loved that. So now we're going to move into, as we kind of bring this to a close, what I call the lanyard upsection. And that's the little something extra. So we can learn a little bit more about Tiffany. Is that okay if I ask you some more questions?
Absolutely.
All right. Here's my first question. Who inspires you?
Gosh, I'm inspired by so many people. I would say if I had to pick one, it would be my 7-year-old daughter. She just teaches me so much about life. And, if I'm having a bad day, the other day, she wrote me this little note and she was like, Mom, remember to be grateful. And those are things that I, try to teach her, but it's the same thing. Like we oftentimes need to hear what we teach. And so it's just so inspiring when this little 7-year-old is like, Mom, don't have a bad day. Just remember like all the things you're grateful for. So I would have to pick her.
I love that. That's so great. How do you celebrate wins?
In all honesty, I could do a lot better job of celebrating wins. I'm a quick start by nature and I love to do things and get things done. And like I'm always having ideas and on to the next thing. So it's actually something that it's funny that you asked that because in 2022, I plan on really stepping back and celebrating more. So right now I might have like, I don't know. I used to drink a glass of wine and celebrate. I don't really do that as much anymore. So I'll have to find a new routine for that. So thank you for asking.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to hear what it'll be. What's one thing people would be surprised to learn about you?
There's probably a few things. The main thing that I tell people and they're just like, what, is that I was a Golden Gloves boxer in high school. I was a tomboy. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. Yeah. I was the true tomboy. And I don't know why I chose, actually had some friends, like I had one friend that did it and I was just like, I'm going to go along with her. And I love boxing and I still, recently I turned 40 and picked it back up and started boxing in a gym again. I'm not going to like actually have fights or compete or anything, but it's a lot of fun.
That's amazing. All right. What's something exciting going on in your business right now?
Ooh, so many things. One thing though, let's see. Can I say a few just because they're all coming together at the same time? Yes, so please. We'll be releasing a new website right after the new year, which will be yourlegacybrand.com. And also a podcast in Q2. So yeah. And then as always, launching legacy brand foundations, which is the main way I help people get brand clarity coming up too. So
is that the group program?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Last question is, how can somebody listening connect with you? What's the best way?
I think the best way at this moment is Instagram. I've really been kind of doubling down and hanging out there a little bit more. And I used to not love Instagram, and now I'm finding a new love for it. So I'm at Tiffany Neuman Creative, and I love connecting with entrepreneurs and meeting new people. So that would be great.
And you're doing some good stuff on Instagram. I know I was going through something that you posted, I think it was yesterday, and I was flipping through. It was super helpful of I'm trying to think of what it was now. My brain just completely blanked, but it was this, I know it was something where it was this process. It was something around process of figuring something out. And I loved it. And I think you had multiple, you could
swipe through.
The swipe through.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yes. I can't think of what it was. Dang,
I know. No, I'm trying to think because I have been fairly active on there earlier or recently. So I'm what could it have been?
I have to go back and look, but go follow her on Instagram. She's posting some good, really interesting content. So thank you so, so much for being here. Thank you for letting me ask you these very direct questions. And I'm just so happy to know you and now call you my friend.
Awesome. Thanks. Same here, Nikki. So honored and such a pleasure to be here today, and just grateful to know you also.
Thanks. Okay. So for you, the listener, if we haven't connected yet, let's connect. I would love to hear from you. What were your takeaways from this episode? You can find me. I also hang out on Instagram under Sales Maven. You can find me on LinkedIn under Nikki Rausch or Sales Maven. That's kind of the easiest way to connect. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. Please go and connect with Tiffany. Her information will be in the show notes as well. So if you want to go check out her website, if you need some brand clarity and you are ready to build your legacy brand, please consider working with her because I've seen her work in action. It's amazing. All right. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.